ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday session. Today we shall continue talking on who am I? मैं कौन हूँ? Now today we will take up a subject which is very practical for each one of us. That how do we conduct ourselves on daily basis? What is our routine? How we are propelled to do things so that we can understand our daily actions. What are the actions we are taking and why we are taking and how that happens. And then we will link it to the Supreme, how that is directly linked to that. So first of all, let us analyze our actions. What do we do in a day? We do two kinds of things. One is driven by our needs. For example, we eat because we feel hungry. We drink water, we feel thirsty. We go to sleep because we feel sleepy. So there is a set of needs which propels our daily actions. Those are based on needs, but those are limited. Then there's another set of things which we do. These things are propelled by our mind or by our ego. Now, for example, somebody wants to buy a bigger house. Now, a thought comes in his mind that my neighbor has a good bigger house, I should buy one. So then he starts working on it. Similarly, somebody wants to, for example, grow his company. He looks at other companies and feels that they have grown so much. I should work for the growth of my company. And then starts unfolding things. He comes out with IPO and, opens a new division, recruits new people, things like that. So there are two things which drive our actions on daily basis. One is the body needs. Needs arises primarily because of body. And second is the needs of our ego and our mind. Or we can say the desires of mind and the desires of ego. So these are the two things which keep driving us on day-to-day basis for the actions we perform. And if we analyze our actions on daily basis, we will feel that approximately 90 to 90% of our actions are driven either by ego or by the mind, not by the physical needs which we have. Physical needs play a small role, but then rest of the needs are driven by mind and ego. Now, this is extremely important. Now, how does this work? We have to understand the mechanism of its functioning in our body system. A thought comes in my mind that I need to travel to so and so place. Now, that thought is non-manifest, avyakt. The thought is avyakt, and when I actually make arrangements, purchase of ticket and travel arrangements and all that, then that becomes manifest. So the action actually we start from non-manifest to manifest. अव्यक्त से व्यक्त. Every single action we do on daily basis, it starts from avyakt and then transforms into vyakt. Let's take a few examples to understand it better. A thought comes to in your mind to buy a new house. Now that is avyakt. And then you start meeting some property agents, you start looking at the advertisements, you talk to the bank for finances, you consult your friends where to buy, what size to buy, then that becomes vyakt. So the avyakt transforms into vyakt. Let's take another example. You want to organize a conference on, for example, Bhagavad Gita. Now that thought is avyakt, that is in your mind. Now that avyakt thought slowly transforms into vyakt. Then you talk to people where to organize the conference, whom to invite, who will be the speaker, what will be the duration, what the logistics are needed. So all those arrangements which you will make, those arrangements will be vyakt, manifest. So every action we do in our life, every single action arises from non-manifest and then converts itself into manifest. So non-manifest is the foundation on which manifest happens. Avyakt is the foundation on which vyakt happens. Now, why this thought comes in our mind? Avyakt is like a seed. You put a seed in the earth, you provide fertilizer, you provide water, you provide, you know, other inputs, and then it fructifies into a plant, and then slowly, it grows into a tree and becomes a big tree with thousands or hundreds of branches. And then you have flowers and the fruit and, leaves and all that. So everything starts from avyakt. Avyakt is the seed which gives birth to vyakt. And the vyakt can keep multiplying like a tree. The example which Lord Krishna has given in chapter 15, that tree keeps multiplying because we remain entangled in the world of Maya. For example, somebody starts a company. Now the thought came in his mind that was avyakt. Then he sets up the company that is vyakt. And then he works for its growth continuously. And he is so much engaged, deeply engaged in the functioning of that company on day-to-day basis that he has nothing else to think about. He's all the time engrossed with the company matters. So that is the tree keeps growing, that the company keeps growing with multiple branches, with lot of leaves, and then obviously the flowers and fruits. But it keeps continuing. So that keeps us engaged. So this is how our functioning is on daily basis. Now the question arises why this desire happens, why this avyakt comes into play or comes into our thoughts. There must be some reason why a thought comes in your mind that I should do this, I should not do this, I should buy this, or I should sell this. That thought, why does it come? Now, if you go a little deeper into this process, we will find that these thoughts come, or this avyakt seed comes, or it is sitting in our mind because we are not purn, we are not complete, we are not perfect. We are apurn. So we desire more to become purn. Since we are not complete, the desires keep coming. A person who is absolutely purn, complete, he would have no desire at all. But since we are not complete, the desires keep coming in our mind. And that desire becomes the seed. And then the seed fructifies. So these are the three things. This is what we call Karan Sarir, Suksham Sarir, and Sthul Sarir. It is more or less similar to that. The Karan Sarir comes because we are incomplete. संस्कृत में कहेंगे पूर्ण नहीं है, अपूर्ण है. तो हम पूर्ण होने की चेष्टा करते रहते हैं कि if by acquiring this I'll be satisfied, by acquiring this I'll be satisfied. That continues, that process continues. And so long as we are upon, this process will continue. The seed will continue to form inside us and propel us to do actions, and those will become manifest world of our own. So we create a world of our own through this seed. The seed arises because of our incompleteness. So this is the process which governs our life on day-to-day basis. Now, this fructification or this seed, this keeps us engaged like a tree. It keeps growing. Whatever field we choose, in that field we are pursuing our activities all the time. And we remain engaged. We have nothing, no spare time to think about anything else, to think why this is happening. And that is why it is important for us to take a break from our daily routine and think why this process is happening in me. And then we will realize that this process is happening because I have desires, and desires arise because of my incompleteness, because of my apurnta. If something is poor, these desires will not happen. So now let us uh, go a step further. How do we become poor? That is the fundamental question of who am I? One can become poor. There's only one truth in this universe, that the Supreme is alone poor. That is why we start our session with Poon Mada Hai Poon Midam. Poon, that is the Paramatma is Poon. The whole universe which he has created has come out of this Poon. And what remains is also the Poon. So the truth is that the Supreme is Poon. And if we can become one with the Supreme, then we will become Poon. Then our desires will come to an end. Then we will have no more desires, no more avyakt seed, and no more fructification of that seed. So this is what ultimately the spirituality is, that let us become complete and let us remain or get united with the Supreme. And that is what is called yoga. Yoga means yukt, to become one with the Supreme. So until and unless we become one with the Supreme, this process of formation of seed and its fructification will continue forever. Because in this world in which we live, the world of manifest things can never be complete. Because anything which is manifest has its boundaries. Like we construct a house, it will have its boundary. Whatever be the size, it may be a huge house, but still it will have a boundary. We construct a factory, it will also have limitations. It can be further expanded. Whatever we do in this physical world has limits because this physical world cannot be defined without limits. In fact, the very definition which we use in our language is based on those limits. If we say that something, some star which is existing between the moon and the sun, now we are referring to a particular star which has limits, and those limits are within between those two other, you know, universal bodies, or you other two bodies, the sun and the moon. So the limits are invariably they were there in the manifest world. Our body also has a limit. There's a body structure which creates a limit for it. So the very fact that every manifest thing in this universe, whether it is an object or whether it is a species of life or anything else, has a limit. And since they have a limit, Himalaya also has a limit. River, big river also has a limit. So since they have limits, we cannot become pooled because limits cannot give us the punta. Punta can come only when we are unlimited. And that aseem is possible only when we become one with the Supreme. So now the question is that if we want to curtail our desires, if we want to stop our desires, if we want to be happy forever, eternally, then we have to be one with the Supreme, and that is called Yog or Yukt. You become Yukt with the Supreme. So, this is what we have to do. Now, how do we do that? Now, that is a very big issue which has been dealt with in Bhagavad Gita, and we have studied it in variety of ways. So I don't want to go into those again, but I would like to say a few things here. You see, if we continue to be prisoner of our mind, if the mind keeps governing us day in and day out, which happens, then it will be the limitation, the greatest limitation for us. The mind will not allow us to expand to the limitless. And that is why it is said that actually mind converts the infinite consciousness into finite body consciousness. Paramatma, or we can say Asim, is converted to within certain boundaries to Sima because of the mind. This mind actually reduces the consciousness to the limits of the matter. Like the body is matter, the mind limits our consciousness to the body, and then it becomes Jivatma. So the consciousness remains limited to the body mind complex because of the mind. And therefore, we have to grow out of the mind. We have to think of our consciousness constantly again and again. Unless we think about our consciousness, that this body mind instrument is a small instrument at the disposal of the consciousness, that feeling must come in us. And we should think of ourselves as consciousness again and again. It's an effort we'll have to make because 90% of the time, or maybe even more, during the day, we are driven by our mind and by our ego. We are not driven by our consciousness. If we are thinking about the consciousness, then mind and ego will become inactive over time, slowly, slowly. And they will not be in the driver's seat anymore. Then you will remain in your consciousness and you will feel constantly one with the Supreme, constantly united with the Supreme, and then the outside activities of the world will not be able to disturb us. This is how it operates. Now, becoming one, there are, of course, Lord Krishna has talked about Karma Yoga, he has talked about Jnana Yoga, he has talked about Bhakti Yoga. But ultimately, even Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, they lead to Bhakti Yoga. Ultimately, you surrender yourself to the Supreme, as he said in last chapter of Bhagavad Gita 18, verse number 66, that we surrender to the Supreme ultimately, and then he takes care of us. Now, let me explain this with another example. When we fly from one place to another in an aircraft, we remain bothered about what seat, what is the baggage, whether the size of the baggage is appropriate, weight is appropriate, my seat is the one which I like, I get a proper row in which I am sitting, who will be my neighbor, whether I have, what time I have to reach the airport, what time I have to report to the counter and all that. So we are constantly worried about all these things. But do we ever think about the pilot who is actually controlling our destiny when we are in the aircraft? He is the one who is driving us and who is the one who will take us from one place to another, and we are totally at his mercy at that particular moment. We never think about that. We all the time remain bothered about the, what you call inane activities. We never inquire who is the pilot, who will, take this vehicle or this aircraft to another place. And even if we try, we will not be very successful because this is not easily disclosed to us. Now, this is the situation in this world. We never inquire about the Supreme who is ruling and controlling this whole universe, who is guiding this whole, aircraft of this universe into one place to another, and destiny of all of us, like the pilot of the aircraft. But we are all the time busy with other things, like we are busy in case of a flight from one place to another. So we have to find some time to ourselves to rise above these inane and routine things and think about the larger picture. Think about the one who decides our destiny. And that is the approach we have to take in our daily life. That slowly, slowly, we start giving more and more importance to the Supreme who rules the entire universe and who guides our destiny, not what is happening in this world, which are like inane activities, like buying a ticket and selecting a seat. So that is how we have to activate ourselves internally. Then we will reach closer to the Supreme. But those things have been discussed in detail, so I don't want to go into that. Now, uh, the current series, which we talked about, the current series is happening primarily because of apunta. And once we become one with the Supreme, the current series will dissolve into the Supreme, and then there would be no reason for us to come back in this universe and take birth and rebirth and pass through all these sufferings which are there in this, in this world. This world is basically, we call it sansar because it's like a chakra. It's all the time repeating. Now I can see the life after 68 years in a different perspective. I can see the children, my children and the grandchildren, they pass through the same process as we pass through. There's, there's hardly any difference. The difference is of symbolic nature, of the linguistic nature. But we all pass through the same process. In the childhood, we are innocent, then we are sent to a school where we, mix with our, other students and make friends, and then we come back home and the same routine of eating food and completing your homework and, you know, pressure being put by your parents to devote your time to studies, to learn this, to learn that, to have certain games and sports and all that. And then slowly, slowly you grow. And when you become young, your thinking process goes in a different direction. Then you start thinking, about having girlfriend or a boyfriend. And then, the sexual desire becomes stronger. So that drives our life. Then there's a requirement of job. Then there's a requirement of status. Then all those processes continue again and again. If you look at your children, they are passing through the same process. Your grandchildren are passing through the same process. So we are repeating the same process again and again in this world, in this universe. And we pass through the same sufferings uh, as we have been doing. So this process will continue until and unless we remove the karan. The karan is the root cause is that we are अपूर्णता को खत्म करना है. We have to bring पूर्णता. We have to be complete in ourselves so that all these desires disappear. And that is possible only when we become one with the Supreme, one with Purna. He is Purna, and therefore, as soon as we get into His domain, we will also become Purna, and all that process of birth, rebirth, and sufferings will come to an end. So this is how our routine works. So I thought I will, bring this out in a very concise manner, how our routine works and how it is connected with the supreme power, so that we can start thinking about the supreme power and have more frequent connection with him in our daily routine, and rather than being driven by mind all the time. So I thought I'll just bring this out. I want to be little short today because I can see our attendance is little low today. So any case, I wanted to divide this into two parts. So we'll have one more part next session, and that session will be on a very fundamental question. And that question is whether the Jivatma and Paramatma are the one or they are different. Because there are some what we call great sentences in Veda which says Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. These are the sentences which tell that we are Paramatma or we can be Paramatma. So how far these you know sentences and what is the actual meaning of these sentences which have been given in our great ancient scriptures. So we will analyze those in some detail, and I think we will need one full session for that. So our next session will be devoted the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, and whether they are different or whether they are the same. And then I think our process of who am I will come to a conclusion at that time. So thank you very much for joining this morning or this afternoon. And if you are interested, we can have the meditation session now. Thank you.